Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Do Big podcast. The topic for today is women influencing change. And to speak with us on this subject, we have none other than Neeraja Ganesh. Neeraja Ganesh is a TEDx and a keynote speaker at various conferences. She's been invited to various prestigious forums like Lenin, and I've had the opportunity to hear Neeraja speak. So let me tell you, it's absolutely amazing and fun to listen to her speak. She's been invited to many prestigious forums across the globe to deliver talks on a variety of topics. In her freelance capacity, she also conducts various training programs on leadership and behaviors. Networking for Results and How to Tell Your Story are two of her signature programs. I had the opportunity to attend a program that Neeraja did with her daughter on how to build your personal brand. And I think I still take home some of the learnings that I had at that program. So I'm hoping that this podcast is going to be as informative for all of you, and you have a lot of learnings that you can take back with you. While Neeraja has won several awards, she has also been featured as one of the 40 women who have traversed their life journeys from ordinary to extraordinary in the book Magical 40 at 40. Neeraja strongly believes that mentorship is extremely beneficial in the development and growth of individuals. She's a mentor on a variety of platforms, including Aspire for Her and Jobs for Her. She switched her career to work in the space of gender diversity after a successful career in information technology industry, managing large teams, delivering large IT projects, operational excellence, and customer delight for banking captives for over 25 years. Prior to Aspire for Her, she served as the Director, Relationships at National Education Society of Karnataka. Her focus in that role was to closely work with industry veterans to build the industry academia connect and to ensure the curriculum of institutions was relevant to the current and future industry needs. That's such a big, big gap today. She's also headed the Jobs for Her Foundation, which was set up to bridge the gender gaps in India for a period of 18 months. In that role, she built a unique brand, numerous partnerships, and a large community of women who experienced a variety of learning interventions through workshops, conferences, trainings, and hands on projects. Talking about change, who else but she, who's done so much with individuals, with organizations, with institutions to bring about change? Who other than her would be better to talk to us about this today? So, welcome, Neeraja, to the Do Big podcast. And it's our absolute pleasure to have you here today with us.
Thank you, Sheetal. And I am so thrilled to be on this because I believe that impact is created when you share. And I do not say no to any opportunity where I can share whatever I have learned and my experiences. So glad that we are doing this today.
Happy to have you here. And Neeraja, I'm going to jump into my very first question for you. As a thought leader, you've seen a lot of changes that have happened over the last few years. What do you see as the most significant challenges and opportunities facing the MSMEs in today's, really rapidly changing and challenging landscape?
I believe that one can look at any situation in life as a challenge or as an opportunity. And all of us went through COVID, and COVID showed and proved that for each of us. So if we deliberate that MSMEs have lots of challenges, I think the big players also have them. Some are similar, some are different, but all of us have our plate full of both. Similarly, there are plenty of opportunities that MSMEs have. And the fact that we're doing something like this for MSME, there's a ministry to cater for this particular business segment. I think what is the most important is that the mindset of everyone, including this particular business segment, is that we can and we should do big. So now, if I have to name a few challenges, we can definitely talk about their access to finance, their access to technology, adaptation. Maybe do they get the right skill sets and talent? Do they have the good and the right processes? These could be seen as some bottlenecks that could keep them awake at night. As you can see, there are opportunities also. When all of us have, including the government, has such a focus on this, and the number of platforms that are coming in to help and showcase the work that they do, I think if the founder and the team has the right mindset, these can be turned around. So I recently came across a LinkedIn post, and I'm a big believer in branding and a big believer in platforms like LinkedIn. So this is a post of a founder, very recent, I think a few days ago, who's from this segment, who said, "I am trending on Discovery Network." Now, some of you may have, kind of come across this post. So he had spoken about a movie that inspired him to start his business instead of taking a lucrative job opportunity from his company. And the statement that he made was, "I realized that if the company where I was working could trust me to handle an international business, then I could certainly trust myself to start something new of my own." So eventually, it's the mindset to keep him going, right? So it's self belief, taking calculated risks, and the importance of continuous learning and adaptation. These are the things that he said worked for him, but I think this is what works for everyone. Either we can keep cribbing and crying, or we can take the next step to think of what needs to be done, tide over, and build to the next level. So, those of us who follow Shark Tank would remember the story of Flatheads. The founder, Ganesh Balkrishnan, he pitched his heart out, he walked away without a deal. But with that spotlight, the community that supported him and helped him tide over that challenge. So he says his lesson is embrace every setback. Another Shark Tank story, and this time of a woman, because we're kind of focusing a lot on women in this time period. We should focus on women forever, but yeah, March coming and with Women's Day around. Neeti Singhal, she is the founder of Twee in One, the reversible and convertible clothing. She got a stern no from one of those investors. However, she came on Amul's topical and things just got better for her from there. So, the biggest resource, if I have to use that word for all of us, including MSMEs, is your mind and the mindset. And I believe it's our goal, and we are chasing our goal. While we can talk about competition, yeah, you have to look at your competition, but if we just focus on our goal and chase our goal and, kind of think about that very focused, I think we will find creative ways to overcome the challenge. And definitely building a digital brand is very, very important today, because with that, you never know who reaches out to you, who helps you. So, for example, like I'm on this podcast today, I think it's all because of my digital presence and network for sure.
So, it's so interesting because a lot of the family businesses, which are really large businesses today, I think were MSMEs at some point in time, right? A couple of decades ago, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe. But we never think of it like that. We think of them as large businesses today, but they all started small and they all started as MSMEs and SMEs. And today they've become who they've become. And I'm sure they've had this, challenges and they've had their opportunities. And it's really the ones who've taken the opportunities, grabbed it, and moved on who've become the success stories, while some of the others may not have. But you're absolutely right. It's so a mindset driven thing. It's about identifying the opportunities, grabbing onto them, making sure that you don't lose self belief and build on your own. It's very interesting. You talked about mindset. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the senior people I speak with always talk about, which is about a positive mindset and a mindset which will get you through a lot of things. But when you think about bringing a positive mindset shift, right? In today's day and age, I'm going to focus a little bit on tech because you've also come from the world of tech. So when you think about tech, it's always challenging for people to accept tech. It could be because I don't understand it. I really don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know what the investments required are going to be, all of that. How do you see that shift coming in? And what strategies do you think are best when you have to foster that kind of mindset shift in businesses?
So there's no way out, right? Even the roadside Telawala has a Paytm and a digital way of transacting, and it is always amusing when we have people who come from abroad. I had my uncle and aunt who came and they wanted to buy some foods before they visited us, and they said he had no money, he had no cash. He was always referring to the digital payment, and they were kind of flabbergasted. So our country has done that, right? The amount of digital penetration that we have done. And how did that roadside fellow just kind of adapt to it. He may not even be literate. He may not even know the English. However, he realized this is survival for him. And this is the way to go ahead of the competition. So, again, it's the mindset. So, there are a couple of things that I definitely say is how do you learn that there's a different way of doing things today? How do you even learn that? That doesn't come by going to an MBA program or sitting through some entrepreneurship classes, etc. And that is why all these events and conferences and these podcasts, the video interviews, being on social media, following some inspiring leaders and stories do for you. You get those ideas, you get that awareness, and then you go about finding how to implement it. So first of all, we need to know that this is required. This is the way of, you know, the things today. And two, once you realize that, then you need to implement it, which is when you need to get to the right person. So I strongly believe that everyone needs to be out there, and learning is perennial. We are, you know, at a stage where you need to invest in your own learning. When I started off, my company would have, say, 10 days mandated learning days, and it would be part of my KPI. Did you do 10 days of learning? And there would be a learning calendar, and they would expect you to enroll for only those trainings using which you could do something well in your current role. But today it's not that. You've got to learn everything. In fact, I talk a lot about being a T shaped individual. So, where you have your subject matter expertise as the vertical of the T, but the horizontal of the T is a lot of other skills or competencies. So, are you a problem solver? Are you curious? Are you collaborative? Are you networking? And things like that, right? So, which means that do not ask, what's in it for me? Is it going to be of use? Just go all out, read everything, listen to every podcast, be at every other conference that you can go to, and talk to people. There is a lot of learning and awareness that you can bring in. After that has happened, when you want to embrace that within your organization, is when you can seek help. But again, there are so many platforms out there today to provide that help. It is not necessarily finance. It is more in terms of how do you adapt to it, which is more important. The finance part will anyway come later. So I think the mindset shift that every business owner needs to have is that I want to really learn, and hence I'll be, you know, out there regardless of whether it is serving my industry or it's a different industry. And two, to kind of seek that help or take that help when it is offered, and to start building in that change. Start small. I mean, it can be like I always refer to this platform that I'm part of. It's called Aspire for Her. It's a platform for women, you know, across, we've got about 18, 19 communities of women. When Madhura Das Gupta Sinha, the founder, started this, she had 6 girls, college girls, who built this for her because she was impacting girls in that age group, girls in the age group of 18 to 25. So she felt she needs girls in that age group who will build Aspire for her. And they did such a phenomenal job for 2 years in terms of building the technology, in terms of building their social media, in terms of bringing in those alliances, etc. So it's not about age, it's not about skills, it is not about the strata that you are in. It's the openness in the mind to embrace, and look at the simplest ways of solving problems. You really don't have to go, get uh, invest in a lot of cloud space, or find some cloud solutions, etc.
Okay, that's pertinent advice, because I think one of the other piece of advice that I've got from a few others is to say, for you, focus on the business because you know what the challenges of the business are. And then once you know what the challenges are, find the support to find the solves for it. And that's exactly what you're saying. Saying that you know your business, focus on your strength, and then build with people on top, helping you find the solutions, the right solutions for the challenges. Because if you don't know what the problem is, the solution any which ways is going to be wrong. So it doesn't matter. So I think that's very interesting.
And don't think you need a 20-year expert. Well, I don't know what your 20-year expert means today, right? Because you have experts at every age group. But it is about who can help. It's the who and not necessarily the age and the experience and which institute the person studied at, etc.
Correct. That's so important because, today youngsters are learning on the go, right? Especially when it comes to tech. I mean, who knew that, generative AI is going to change so much of our lives? So, and it's the young ones who really picked it up very quickly and moved on with it. So it's really the dynamism, the also their own agility, right? The person who's working with you also needs to be agile enough to take all of the learnings. That's fantastic.
And one more point is no ego, right, from our side. So, why I always come back to Madhura's story is imagine a 50-year-old lady working with 18-year-olds. And if the 18-year-old tells you your social media is crap and you need to fix it, do I have the ego or no ego to take such a feedback and say, okay, if you think so, please tell me what needs to be done, right? And today she is where she is. So, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you think leaders, and because you've moved so significantly into the diversity, equity, inclusion space, how can leaders and MSME owners actively contribute to creating a more inclusive and supportive environment for women in their organizations?
Sure. See, I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I've seen organizations which have all women to most women, and I've seen organizations which are so male dominated. Whether it is an MSME or a big player, the way to do this is to be intentional. You have the right intent, not because somebody says this is what you need to do and it's not a tick box activity, but you're really intentional in building a diverse organization and be very inclusive. What I tell people is if you think you want 50-50, so 50% of women and 50% of men, then the starting point is ensuring you get 50-50 resumes. If you don't get that, you get an 80-20 mix, then you know everything else after that is going to be that skew, and maybe it'll end up with no women. So, how do you get the 50-50? You may probably get the CVs of men more easily, but you may not get that many CVs of women. But that doesn't mean the women are not. It's just that you need to look a little more harder. So, it is then the founder's responsibility or CHRO's responsibility to say that I'm not going to take it to the next stage of interview till I at least see an equal number of CVs. So then the recruiter looks a little harder and does whatever else is required to get that equal number of resumes. And even after this looking harder, if you didn't get, then you know what you need to do. You have to then build that pipeline. So then you start contributing to building that talent. So you go to those colleges, you talk to those girls, you go to those community platforms that exist and say, hey, the work that we do is interesting. This particular course is good for you and it can get you a good job and it can get you a good salary, etc., etc. So we need to do that. And that comes only when you're intentional. When the intent is not there, then you say, okay, we tried, we didn't get, so now we're moving ahead with what? The other is about asking everyone in the organization what they need and not to assume. So easily we assume that a woman who's just come back from maternity leave may need some flexibility or will not be able to do this kind of late evening jobs or something like that. And it may not be the case. There may be some who may need it, there may be some who don't need. And similarly for men too, there might be some men who need that kind of flexibility. So it is very important not to assume, but to ask and then build or provide the support that is required. So here I want to narrate two stories. One is, so today, of course, diversity is beyond just man and women. So there is, of course, LGBTQAI plus, you have persons with disability and a lot more. So I was moderating this panel discussion it was at an event to celebrate the Day of Persons with Disability. And this man who didn't have, eyesight, vision, he said, the minute the lockdown happened, the COVID lockdown happened, and we all moved to online shopping, is when the realization came that none of those e-commerce portals were built to help people with no vision. Now, how do you get this insight without having someone like that in your organization? And hence, it is so important that you have, if you're talking about women, then you have women in during the idea stage, during the design stage, and during the sales, because eventually your buyers are diverse. So if you haven't catered your service or your product doesn't cater to a diverse segment. And that can happen only when you have diversity in every role that you have in your organization. Then you're not really going to have a very diverse customer base, which is going to then affect your revenues and your profits. And yeah, if we have time, I'll narrate this story. More than diversity and inclusion, equality, I think it's about equity. Because the question that comes is, oh, so we are doing a favor. Or we have to kind of, do something very different. And hence, I think we don't want to do it. But this story is of this girl who was studying in NIIT many years ago. She was doing a computer course, and there was this company called Sonata who were looking for programmers. They wanted contract programmers for a short term, 3 months. So they came to the institute and they said, we'll take about 12 of these students for a 3 month contract assignment. And this was, I'm talking early 90s, when you didn't have even computers, don't have too many computers in companies, forget computers at home. So they were getting them to work in shifts. So same computer, morning one person works and afternoon another person works. Now this girl had one more semester to complete. So her classes were from 3 to 5. She was put in the morning shift, which is from 7 to 3. It was still doable somehow. However, I'm talking about an era where you didn't have computers at home. So these students used to spend more time in the institute waiting for spare PCs to practice. Now, you don't know when a PC is available, like somebody's absent or a faculty member didn't come. You don't know whether it's going to be morning or. So the girl's issue challenge was that she could work. For sure, she could work, but can't work in shifts. So she spoke to the management, and usually, and I'm talking so many years ago, the management would say, okay, you finish your course and come back. Then we'll see if there's a job for you. But the management took 2 days and came back to her and said that we'll make an exception for you. We'll give you a dedicated computer so that you can come and go whenever, as long as you finish the work. And that helped the girl. So she would go, to say the institute, work for a few hours, then come back here, finish some work, then go back. That she had to manage. But she delivered her work. Okay. And today that girl is here sitting in front of you. Right. So that I talk about equity. Why did Sonata do that for me? And not because I'm a girl, because I'm a student. They wanted to help students start their careers. And they felt the change, the difference that they could bring about is to give me an additional, computer, which will help me kind of be in the job and still perform. Nothing else was changed. Not lesser number of programs or none of that. That remains same. And that is what I want organizations to look at. How do you build that equity? It is not favoritism. It is not, special, allowances, but have a equal playing ground for everyone. And if that means something additional for that woman, make that happen.
Okay. And I'm asking this question. I would have normally not done this, but because we're talking about this in the month of March, how are women driving change in the startup and SME sectors? Maybe a case study, maybe an experience that you've had with somebody. How are they driving the shift? Because I hear enough conversations of women coming into the startups, but then very often the conversation gets triggered over to what are the challenges that women startup founders have versus men. And I'm like, a startup is a startup is a startup. And let's think of it as a startup issue and not a woman versus a man driven startup. So I just want to understand from your perspective, how do you think women are driving change in this industry, in the SME sector?
So there are two that I want to talk about. I mean, one is a not-for-profit, but let's talk about them also. And both are, serving women. So one is Aspire for Her with Madhura Dasgupta Sinha, right? So she identified the problem as World Economic Forum every year puts out a gender gap report where India is, featured or ranked at the bottom of the list. Every year we go down. So now somebody has to fix this. So she said, I'm going to pick it up and fix it. How do I fix it? Which means you need to understand why these girls who are getting educated are then not getting employed or moving out of, the workforce. And her survey told her that a few things are lacking. One is that there are no role models as well as nobody out there who talks to them about careers which are beyond engineering, medicine, law, and management. So there are so many other things that one can do. But how do I do that? I have an interest, but I don't know how to. what do I study and where do I go? So, which means that there has to be a showcase of all kinds of careers that are available. And that's what is now Aspire for Her caters to it as career previews, and they have a lot of role models. Second is mentors. And that's why I am a huge believer in mentoring, and I mentor, whoever comes to me, because you have already gone through that path. Now, why should somebody else also struggle? You can kind of easily give them some pointers and directions to look at. So these are role models and mentors. Three is skills. Our colleges don't necessarily equip us with what is required, and that's why I was doing that role of the industry academia connect, right? So from where do I get those additional skills? So these were the three or four things which she figured out, and she built a platform. And she said, okay, I'm going to start with these 6 girls who will help me build the platform. Today, after it's going to be 4 years now, she has 18 communities there, starting with girls in colleges, which was the first one, too. The latest one being what she calls as her sport ki champion. Her as in Hindi, her, and English her sport ki champion, because you know that the women in sports, most of them come from rural and uneducated backgrounds. There are a few, that we know of are possibly well educated. Now, the sporting career is limited and you're not educated. Then what do you do after that? So that's a community that she has built to ensure that they get some kind of mainstream skills and they are able to get themselves employed. Has it been an easy journey? No, because you got to tell everyone why you need to have women and why you need to serve this particular community. What has worked for her is that she has been able to find the right people to support her, either in the organization as workforce or as networks who are carrying the word for her. So she has an awesome network. Where did she get this network? One is she's kept in touch with all her school friends, her college mates. So you go to the IIMs and the XLRIs of the world, they are in places, influential places, right, today. And then, of course, like me, she's also a huge networker and she brings people along, and we are willing to do what we can. So I think there are many, many success stories of women startups and startup founders. Challenges exist, they'll be there for everyone. But what is driving her is the fact that there is a need for this. And if I don't do it, then nobody else will do it. So let me go and do it. And let me take people who believe in this. Now, I don't want to build another Aspire for her, but I do want to contribute in the way that I would like to. So she is open to take that contribution, which is my time. So I ran some projects for her. I'm able to mentor and, I do a few programs for her. The second story is of Jacinta Jayachandran, who started a not-for-profit organization called as Hope Works Foundation. So she also was, in Infosys, and then she was running her own entrepreneurship, again, to help women. But the reason she started Hope Works was she went back to the school where she studied. So all of us, when we turn 50, we want to do something for the world, right? So she went back to the school that she studied, and she went and met the principal, and she said, I want to do something for the school. So the principal looked at the car in which she had come. And she said, is that your car? She said, yeah, it is. So you tell me that you studied in this school, because this is a school for girls from really financially underserved backgrounds. You studied in this school and today you have that car. Can you teach my girls hope? To be hopeful that they can have a future like this. And she didn't know how do you teach hope, but she figured out. And today she runs Hope Works Foundations. And you should look at the girls that come out from there. Such smart. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a need. These things are understood by the people who are impacted. So you may have some men, who are also running startups or, businesses catering to women. However, the women understand this best. And hence, it is important for everyone to ensure that they bring in that diversity in the organization to understand the entire landscape and to be able to be successful and create the right impact.
So, I was going to ask you on mentorship and community support, but I'm going to change that question of mine because you touched upon a very, very important piece, which is called networking. right? So you've covered a lot on mentorship and community support, but I want to understand what is that advice you would give entrepreneurs, both male and female, on the need for networking, the benefits of networking, and maybe a few steps on how to go about networking, because it's very easy to say network, but it's very difficult to network. So just a little bit on that.
My favorite topic. So I start by saying that the definition of networking is what can you give? And I think a lot of us need to change that in our minds because we always think of networks as okay, fine. If I'm well networked, I'm able to get a few things in life. Yes, eventually you will. But that's not the starting position because when if you start there, then you're only trying to meet a sheeple thinking, what can she give me? Maybe she can bring me as a podcast guest next time. And how do I ask Sheetal, how can be a guest on your podcast? So that's a very difficult conversation. But if I'm looking at it as, okay, Sheetal does XYZ, what can I give Sheetal? So I say, Sheetal, are you looking for some guests for your podcast? I have a few people that I can refer. Can you imagine how easy that conversation is? You have no issues. Sheetal has no issues. And she say, yeah, if she doesn't need, she'll say, sorry, I don't need now. Next time I will ask. Or you please introduce. And introductions are the easiest way to start networking. So today I'll tell you, Sheetal, I was preparing for this and I have a meeting after this also. So my morning was very busy. And still I've done 4 different kinds of introductions, which all came like this. So somebody said, Neeraja, will you come and speak at an event tomorrow? Because last minute the keynote speaker is cancelled. I have 3 sessions tomorrow. So I looked at the agenda and I said, no way I can accommodate it, but I will refer you someone. And it's a real big platform. So I have to refer someone who's really powerful, to be a keynote speaker. So there I'm, asking people. And I have to do this by 12 because tomorrow is the event. Then there is someone else who put on a group. Women's Day is coming up. Our organization is going to be putting up, helping women entrepreneurs put up stalls like a flea market. Do you know of an organization who can get us these women entrepreneurs? And I know of a few because I'm so well networked. So I'm trying to, patch them. Like this, there were 4 different kinds of requirements that came in. For me, each of them, the patching up is 2-3 minutes. But in a busy day, you may not prioritize that. Okay. But I still chose to prioritize because if I don't do this today, then all the 4 are not getting served. Tomorrow it's too late. That's the giving part of it. Now, every day you will not be so busy. There are days when you have the time. But can we just simply give and start giving introductions and then start looking at how else can I help someone? And that is the basis of networking for me. And the second thing I talk about is leave your comfort zone and show up. Show up to any and every kind of an event that is happening in your city or virtually also, it is okay. Don't start thinking, this is not in my, line of work. I'm not a tech person. I don't need to go to a tech event. I'm not an HR person. I don't need to go to a DNI event. Even book clubs, lit fests, anything and everything, because you need to have a very diverse network. So we were part of Herky, we were part of Shimantra. So much of my learning about running, if I can call it as a business, I'm a freelancer, and what I do today has come from these communities, from all what these communities have offered as learning resources. So networking, simple. The definition is give before you receive. It will come back to you in many ways. Leave your comfort zone and show up at events and have very genuine conversations with people. It's not about collecting 100 business cards. It's not about the number. But even those 2 conversations that you have, it is very genuine and you know how you can help that person. That's good enough. Over a period of time, the network will expand. People will remember you for your generosity and will give back to you in ways that you have never imagined.
So, you know, entrepreneurs always have this thing, they're doing everything themselves. And therefore, the one big constraint a lot of people think is money. I think it's time, right? Because you're everything from the strategist to the execution and everything in between is the entrepreneur. And especially in the startup stage, right? When an entrepreneur is really busy, how do you fit networking into an extremely busy? It's like, do I set up my business or do I network? And that always becomes a question for a lot of startup entrepreneurs. Just any thoughts on that?
So I think initially you will feel that this is one added activity. but over a period of time becomes a way of life. Okay, so as I said, in a busy day today, I actually could do those 4 connections, which means I'm also expanding my network and I'm helping somebody else expand their network. And it took me 2 3 minutes, right? So it becomes a way of life. When you start, you will probably think of who is that person, and then to write that introduction, you will take some time, and all of that. But over a period of time, it becomes a way of life. You have to calendarize it, just like you calendarize every other meeting of yours. You have to calendarize 2 networking events at least every month. If you can do more than that, it's great. So, which means that Google, find out there's ample events happening. And as I said, go to diverse events. Don't keep going to because you'll meet the same people. Meeting the same people means, one, you're not expanding your network. Two, you don't get different ideas in your head because it's the same kinds of conversations, right? I was in tech for 25 years. I don't think anybody ever knew Neeraja. I quit from my corporate, avatar as a director at Capgemini. I don't think anybody knew me. I used to only go to those tech events which the company sponsored. Same crowd. However, what made me kind of shift in my head is just a year before I quit, I went to this event for women on a career break. I didn't have to go because I was not on a break. I was not intending to take a break. But I had actually done some research because my company had asked me to put out a recommendation to hire women on a career break. So I said, okay, let me go and attend that. And what a transformation it was, because for the first time, I realized the pains that these women are going through. Because I have never taken a break, I cannot empathize. I feel, of course, life can go on. I was able to do it, you should be able to do it. Second, the kinds of people who came there to speak, their thoughts were so different. And I said, Neeraja, why can't you think like this? And that was because you're in a well. So that's when I decided I need to do something, one, for these women, and two, need to really have a larger network to get different kinds of thoughts and ideas going. So I used to kind of calendarize it. I was in my corporate stint, busy period, and then I did whatever I did, but I used to calendarize it and show up at those. If you don't calendarize, then something else will always come up your way. Okay. So I would say that, yeah, you have to make time in the beginning, but over a period of time, it becomes a way of life. So it doesn't then feel as a, big drain on your time. It doesn't. And then you don't even have to go to events. You can sit at home, you can be on WhatsApp groups, you can be on many platforms, and networking just happens.
That is very good advice, because I know most people don't use the WhatsApp groups and things like that for networking as effectively as it can be used. So that's really, really good advice.
And my last words to people who listen to this is that, people come and attend all events, and they will watch every video, they will listen to every podcast. It'll be paisa vasool because it will be entertaining. But will they implement at least one thing that they learned? Do implement at least one thing, if not everything. And you can see how that changes things for you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful piece of advice. Thanks, Neeraja. It's always a pleasure listening to you. I'm really, really happy that I got this opportunity to have this conversation with you. And I learned once again, I learned a lot of things which I know I'm going to implement, because as an entrepreneur, sometimes I struggle. And thank you so much for your wonderful insights. And thank you for giving us your time. So thank you once again from the whole Do Big podcast team for being with us here today. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Do Big podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to providing insights, strategies, and success stories of smart digital solutions for SMEs. We believe that behind every successful business, there's a strong foundation of reliable and secure technology, be it digital connectivity, cloud infra, cloud apps, collaboration tools, or cybersecurity solutions. In a rapidly evolving digital world where technology is key to progress, Tata Tele Business Services stands at the forefront of digital transformation of SMEs. Tata Tele Business Services, with their extensive experience and commitment to empowering businesses, understands the unique needs of SMEs. Whether it's scalable connectivity, robust communication tools, or tailored ICT solutions, Tata Tele Business Services is here to propel your business forward. Tata Tele Business Services is synonymous with innovation, reliability, and transformative solutions. So, if you're ready to take your organization to new heights of success, We encourage you to explore the transformative possibilities that Tata Tele Business Services has to offer. Our contact details are in the description below. Remember, we're available on all major podcast platforms. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, subscribe to our podcast for future episodes, which we promise will be packed with equally valuable insights on questions entrepreneurs face as they digitize and scale businesses with the help of technology. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast, as well as share it with peers, colleagues, and other entrepreneurs like yourself who will benefit from listening to it. Thank you for listening to us. And until the next time, keep embracing technology and may your business thrive in the digital era.